Hello, writers. Come write with me. My name is Michaela Greenwood. I create worlds for mind adventures. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Write with Michaela. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can go on this journey with me. Today is Tuesday, so we are going to look at euphemisms. What is a euphemism? A euphemism is a word or phrase that you substitute for provocative or emotionally charged terms, and or you employ them for various reasons. In City of the Ancients, when the five ladies came to look at Kirsche's lace, and it was late in the morning and Kirian was saying that she was still in bed, sleeping, one of the ladies asked if Kirsche was under the weather. Kirian didn't understand, but in this case, the ladies used the phrase, or this phrase, to ask if Kirsche was pregnant. Kirsche was pregnant. I've also heard people describe pregnancy as having a bun in the oven. Some people feel like it's a little awkward to come out and ask straight if a woman is pregnant or not, especially in today's age when so many people are a little overweight. So you don't want to say, are you pregnant? And then them not be. That's kind of embarrassing. I have several male friends who would never ask a woman if she was pregnant, not even using euphemism to do it. So it's kind of a sensitive topic, or at least it used to be. So people create euphemisms so they don't have to come straight out and say something. These euphemisms can soften our stories or lessen something that is provocative, either in real life or more precisely in the world you create. There are actually 7 types of euphemisms. There is abstraction, indirection, litotes, mispronunciation, modification, personification. We've heard that word before, but we will look at it here. And lastly, there is slang. Before we dive in, I will remind you that there is no test. You're not going to be matching these definitions and these words. This is just a tool to use in writing. You might already use this tool. Maybe you've heard it used in real life, like when a boss fires someone from their job, they might say, "Oh, I'm between jobs," instead of the straight truth. Let's look at abstraction. Abstraction serves to distance people from unpleasant or embarrassing truths, as when we say a dead person passed away. We don't say he or she died straight out. We don't say that death has taken so-and-so, because many people don't like to talk or think about death. So this makes the subject a little easier to talk about or to bear. Now, indirection may replace an explicit description of an action, as when people speak about going to the bathroom or people sleeping together but not sleeping with a spouse. For the bathroom, I've heard, "I'm going to the John," "I'm going to the ladies' room," or "I'm going to powder my nose." While going to the bathroom is normal and natural, it's a little private, and when you're eating especially, some people don't want to think about it. Litotes is a rhetorical device or an understatement in which we often soften or minimize the gravity or force of an idea by using a double negative, as in the reference to someone as being not unattractive. You know, are they beautiful? They're not beautiful? You don't know. They're not unattractive, okay? That's kind of a little vague, but it's not coming out and saying, it's things straight, saving feelings. You could say they're not a bad singer what does that mean? Does that mean they can sing? Does that mean they can't sing? So it's not necessarily clear, precise language when you do this. It is an affirmative expression which uses the negative of the contrary. So you're trying to affirm a person and be positive with the person, so you're not coming out and saying things straight. Think of someone asking you if his or her performance was good. And you don't want to discourage them, because this is their dream. They've reached out. They're doing everything they can. They're doing their rehearsals or whatever. So, was my performance okay? And so you say to them, oh, not bad. So, people, you're not totally being honest, but you're not discouraging. You're not striking them down. So you still have sort of an encouragement there, but it's a euphemism. Mispronunciation is next. It is a form of euphemism, as when we say frigging or shoot or geez or cripes, so as not to offend people by using profanity, figuratively or literally. These types of euphemisms involve rhyme, alliteration, or shortening, and we also call these minced oaths. Okay, modification is taking a bluntly offensive noun and transforming it into a euphemism. An example, and transforming it into an adjective, to make our euphemism. An example would be to say someone has socialist leanings, rather than saying the person is a socialist. Or a drinking problem instead of an alcoholic. So you're taking the noun and you're moving it to be an adjective, so it's kind of modifying or telling about the noun instead of saying outright, So socialist leanings, then maybe you could still change their mind or talk to them about, everybody needs to play a part, or however you feel about socialism, instead of saying they're outright socialist. But if they're outright socialists, you might not be able to change their mind or influence them or whatever to a different way. So this is a nice way to put it, and it's also a hopeful way to put it if you don't agree with socialism. If you don't agree with alcoholism, which you've heard my stories with my father, so you know I don't. I'm not going to tell you that my dad had a drinking problem, or, that my dad was totally in love with his beer. I'm going to say he was an alcoholic, and he was a raging alcoholic at some times. I'm just the straight out truth for that. But, my father's passed away, so it's not hurting anybody when I speak straight like that. Personification is next. Now, we've looked at this term. So let's see how this can be a euphemism. This form of euphemism is when things that some people prefer not to mention candidly, such as genitals, they assign personal names. Or maybe even instead of suggesting to your partner or spouse to have sex, you say something about having dessert. Especially a married couple with young kids present, you have these little kids and they echo everything you say. So, because we don't want those little babies talking about our sex life at school, and they repeat everything they hear, we will use this euphemism. So, your partner and that you're not talking about cookies and cake when you say you're going to go have dessert. But the little babies don't know. And they go to school and say, oh, my parents had dessert. People are just going to think you had cake or something. So that's a way to have like this private conversation in front of little ears. The last one is slang. Now, we've briefly mentioned slang when we talked about idioms. And we mentioned that slang was usually regional or area specific, as well as time frame too. Slang changes over time. So here we will say that people derive much of slang to produce a vocabulary exclusive to a social group, as in the use of a joint for marijuana. Previously, I told you to be careful not to use slang from your area or your time period, but you could certainly create some slang for your story specifically. That way your readers will understand what's going on. In Operatives, one of my stories, one character, Earl White, tells Allison, another character, that he is going to call her DB, which he has said means deceitful B. You fill in the rest. Allison doesn't show her full set of skills to the team that she is pulling together, and Earl uses this to remind himself, as well as the people on the team, that she knows more than she tells and shows. She knows a lot more. And it is a slang for the story. But I've done it in such a way that when they set this up early on, then when he calls her DB later on, all the readers already know because they've been following the story. If someone called you DB on the street, though, since that's story specific, so if somebody called you DB on the street, they probably wouldn't mean the same thing. At least not until Operatives comes a movie, get it published, get a book, get a movie. You remember, that's my dream. So it's just, you maybe if that does happen in the future and that does become a movie, then maybe people will use that term on the street. You never know. You never know what's going to catch on. But it's slang for the story. In real life, corporations and government bureaucracies, including military services, they create euphemisms all the time. An example is when car dealers say pre-owned instead of used. We have a negative connotation or a negative attachment to used. We don't want something that's used. But pre-owned, certainly. Or if you watch some crime shows, sometimes you will hear them say collateral damage in the place of accidental killing. Somebody was collateral damage. Well, that person got killed. And sometimes on the news, especially if it's, 6 o'clock after supper where families are watching the news or whatever, you don't want to be saying some of these things straight out. Oh, they killed 3 extra people. Now that you can say, oh, there was some collateral damage. So the adults can pick up on what's going on in that. In real life, euphemisms are also employed in an attempt to make polite reference to a physical or psychological disability. While this seems more polite or having more respect, some people feel this also diminishes the public perception of the seriousness of the condition. Like when we say someone is sight challenged or hearing impaired, instead of saying someone is blind or deaf. These politically correct euphemisms might make it seem like there is some sight or there is some hearing, when that may not be the case. When we are writing our stories, which this is what this is all about, right? Writing our stories, we can decide what we want to soften or make polite, and we can decide what effect that has on the other characters or the society we create as a whole. Remember, when we started this journey, way back season 1, right? When we started this journey, I told you that as writers, we create everything in our stories. We create the mountains, the buildings, the people, the weather, just everything. So that means you decide to soften the scene or action or not. Of course, while we are writing, we want our stories to be clear to our readers. Maybe as a writer, you accomplish that by being blunt and telling the straight truth of the story. Or maybe that is using a euphemism for some of the cringe-worthy scenes. We want our readers engaged and even at the edge of their seats when we get to our climax. But we don't want them to be so uncomfortable or abhorred that they can't read another word. You must find a balance for you, your story, and your audience or reader. Leave a comment below on euphemisms you use or have heard in your real life. Not an oxymoron, like new and improved. A product can be new or improved, but being both is a contradiction. So that's an oxymoron, not a euphemism. I want euphemisms. On that same note, I don't want us critiquing others. We just want some examples of euphemisms. Of course, we might want to skip the euphemisms that have provocative personification. We don't need to name any body parts here. Keep it clean and respectful and have some fun. Join me Friday for Chapter 5 of Tahia, Birds and Dogs. Join me Tuesday for a writing prompt or some more literary jargon. I appreciate if you would give me some suggestions of what I should cover. Even if we've covered it and you want a deeper dive, then please let me know and we'll go into it. Or at least I will try. It may not come out like you expect, but that's okay. In between days, visit my website, www.bymckella.com, or just bymckella.com. You can visit my website and read some character bios. Today, I spoke about Allison Alcott and Earl White, and they are characters in Operatives. You could go and read their bios. There's a lot of bios, so it might be hard to choose. You can just do the alphabetical list, or first pick a book and then pick the character. There's a lot there to read already, even though everything is not there. So I want you to have fun with that as well. If you hit like and subscribe and the bell notification, then we will continue to write together. Thank you for joining me today. I really appreciate your participation. If you know someone who would like this video, then please share it with them. This is Mckella with Write with Mckella. Bye for now.